The snake that hides in the grass always forgets the eagle is watching from above. My dear chosen ones, let's make something crystal clear. They never fooled you. They thought they were moving in silence, weaving lies in the dark, but you already saw the plot unraveling before they even finished their first whisper. You felt the envy leaking out of their body language. You caught the fake tones in their voice. You noticed the way their eyes darted when your light entered the room. And while they thought they were strategizing, you were simply observing, storing every detail, letting them tighten their own noose. They thought they had the upper hand, didn't they? They assumed your silence meant you were weak, distracted, maybe even naive. But chosen ones, silence is not weakness. It's weaponry. It's the pause before the hammer drops. It's the quiet before the lightning splits the sky in half. And while they were busy sharpening dull blades behind your back, you were already 10 moves ahead, redesigning the entire board. Ask yourself, why did they plot against you so hard? Why were they so obsessed with seeing you stumble? It's because your presence alone threatened the fragile foundations they built their lives on. You didn't even need to expose them. Your existence already did. The truth you carry, the aura you walk with, it shakes illusions to dust without you lifting a finger. And that terrifies them. Because you are not ordinary. You are the glitch in their script, the curveball they never studied for. And let's talk about this so you never forget it. They weren't just fighting you, chosen one. Number. They were fighting the alignment, the energy, the unstoppable current that moves with you. That's why every attempt to trip you up became the very thing that elevated you. Every insult became fuel. Every block became a stepping stone. Every trap became a trampoline. You didn't just survive their envy, you dismantled it. They smile in your face, but you feel the knives hiding behind those grins. They whisper in circles, crafting fake friendships, rehearsing their lies like actors in a bad play. But what they didn't know is that you've always been the director of this movie. You let them rehearse. You let them think they had the lead role, only to flip the script and hand them their own ending. And the ending, it's bitter, it's poetic. It's them choking on the poison they tried to serve you. Chosen ones, remember this the next time doubt creeps in. Lions don't walk in herds. Stars don't apologize for shining. Earthquakes don't announce themselves before they split the ground open. Your power was never designed to blend in. It was built to disrupt. It was built to shake. It was built to terrify those who survive on illusions. You are not the player. You are the game, the final test, the storm system wrapped in skin. And I know what you've asked yourself in the past. Why me? Why does it always feel like me against so many? Because you were not dropped here to be part of the crowd. You were placed here to shift the entire field. That loneliness you feel, that's not punishment. That's proof. Proof that you are rare. Proof that you vibrate too high to fit in shallow circles. So the next time they plot, let them. Let them gather in whispers. Let them believe you're unaware. Because every time they move against you, they're really moving against themselves. And when the timing is right, when the silence breaks, you'll serve them their own poison back. With elegance, with composure, with the kind of power they'll never understand. Chosen one, this is your reminder. You don't just walk into rooms, you bend them. You don't just survive envy, you dismantle it. You don't just play the game, you flip it. They thought they had you. But the truth? You already had them the moment they decided to envy you. And if this message hits that fire inside your chest, pause for a moment. Like, subscribe, drop the number 77 in the comments. Not just for the algorithm, but as confirmation. Confirmation that you saw the plot, you endured the envy, and now you're serving them their own game on a silver platter. Show your support with a super thanks if you're riding with this message, because this isn't entertainment. It's strategy, it's confirmation. And trust me, if you are truly chosen, what comes next will feel like someone has been reading your exact story. Ordinary people can't relate to this. But you've lived it. Number 1. The quiet edge that cuts louder than noise. Return to sender. You read the plot and served it cold. Keep dealing your marked cards. I own the deck and the shuffle. My dear chosen ones, you didn't stumble into that mess. You studied it. You clocked the side-eye before the smile arrived, heard the tremor behind the compliment, traced the outline of the trap while they were still laying bait. They thought you were walking blind. You were mapping exits. They mistook quiet for clueless. Meanwhile, you were calibrating. No thunder, just lightning. That's why it hit them so clean. They were busy scripting your downfall. You were editing the ending. Return to sender. You ask yourself, was I paranoid? Did I imagine the shift? Number. That was pattern recognition. Micro-expressions don't lie. Timelines that don't add up don't lie. Energy that tightens the room when you arrive doesn't lie. Chosen ones, your radar is not drama, it's data. You noticed the late replies that turned fast when they needed something. You caught the copy and paste mannerisms, the way your language started coming out of their mouths when the audience changed. You saw the breadcrumbs they dropped so they could act shocked later. And still, you stayed silent, not to surrender, but to study. They wanted your reaction because reactions are receipts you hand to the wrong cashier. You gave them none. You kept your distance while they wrote their own confession in real time. That's strategy. You didn't need to swing. You let gravity do the work. You gave rope. They crafted a noose and called it networking. You let them. When the reveal came, it wasn't you pointing fingers. It was their own inconsistencies collapsing under the weight of your composure. That's serving it cold. Why me? Why do I keep attracting envy? Because your growth makes shortcuts look cheap. Your pace exposes who's jogging in place. Your clarity is a mirror, and mirrors make cowards itch. Chosen ones, understand this. Your presence is a pressure test. Weak welds crack around you. Counterfeit alliances split at the seams. That's not misfortune, that's filtration. You aren't losing people, you're losing liabilities. Every false hand that tried to steer you became a case study. Every rumor whispered in rooms you never entered turned into free marketing for your resilience. They wanted you loud so they could call you unstable. You stayed surgical. You audited access. You moved your schedule, not your soul. You withdrew your IP, your time, your warmth. Suddenly their engines stalled because they'd been running on your fuel the entire time. That's when the panic began. The rebrands, the backpedals, the misunderstandings. But you weren't bitter, you were better. You weren't vengeful, you were verified by consistency, by results, by the way your piece didn't flinch. Think of it like this. They set a chessboard. You redesigned the rule book. While they chased pawns, you protected your king, your purpose. You didn't chase closure, you upgraded standards. You didn't clap back. You calibrated boundaries so precisely that anything misaligned slid off your field like rain off glass. They wanted a spectacle. You gave them silence that screamed, access revoked. That's not pettiness, that's policy. And for the chosen ones still wondering if you should have given them one more chance, no, their pattern was the apology. The apology was the bait was the loop. You broke the loop. You picked principle over proximity. You chose altitude over applause. That's why your wins started compounding the moment you stopped narrating them. You didn't post the play, you ran it. You didn't announce the pivot, you executed it. Results did the talking. Their storyline died of natural causes. No audience. Here's the quiet truth. People who plot don't fear your no, they fear your neutrality. When you stop reacting, the power grid they stole from goes dark. Your calm is a shutdown sequence. Your detachment is a repossession notice. That's the return to sender effect. Everything they packaged for you boomerangs back with their label on it. Not because you cursed them, but because you refused to carry what wasn't yours. So, my dear chosen ones, Keep that spine straight and your circle sterilized. Keep your receipts internal and your standards external. Let them think you didn't notice until they meet the wall called consequences. Let them whisper about your distance while you move distances they can't measure. You are not here to win the echo chamber. You are here to reroute the signal. And if they insist on playing games, remember, you don't play harder, you play smarter. You let the board tilt. You let the pieces slide. You let gravity finish what grace began. Return to sender, signed in silence, stamped with results. Number 2, what they dread when your presence walks in. They took your kindness for a cage, now they're choking on the lock. The softest hand can feel like steel when the grip is gone. Chosen one, this is where it cuts deep because it's personal. They didn't just envy your shine, they studied your softness, mapped your generosity, and mistook your compassion for compliance. They thought because you opened your heart, you left your defenses wide open. They confused mercy with weakness, silence with surrender, and loyalty with a leash they could tug whenever they pleased. What they never realized is that kindness isn't a cage, it's a test. And now they're gasping, choking on the very lock they thought they snapped on you. You moved with patience, you gave without tallying, you forgave without broadcasting, you showed them the rare luxury of being trusted, and instead of valuing it, they treated it like leverage. They took your love and ran audits looking for cracks to exploit. They saw your loyalty and decided it was theirs to rewrite. My dear chosen ones, they never danced with a doormat. They were waltzing on sacred ground, thinking it would never crack beneath them. But ground that holy doesn't collapse, it erupts. And yes, you blamed yourself at first. You looked back at the ruins, wondering if maybe you were too soft, too open, too loving. Let me set it straight. Your kindness was never the problem. Their greed was. Your compassion wasn't blindness. It was clarity they couldn't match. You saw them, flaws and all, and still offered them a chance to rise. But instead of rising, they dug. They dug for shortcuts. They dug for weaknesses. They dug until they buried themselves under the very dirt they tried to throw on you. They thought they were clever, but manipulation isn't mastery. It's cowardice dressed as strategy. And chosen ones, when the dust clears, it's always the coward left scrambling for air. That's why now they crave the same energy they mocked. They scroll through memories like addicts searching for their last hit. But access has expired. Your boundaries have turned to steel. Your love has evolved into fire. Purging, cleansing, untouchable. You aren't cold, you're clear. You aren't broken, you're refined. So when they circle back with recycled apologies and nostalgia-dipped bait, remember, they didn't grow, they got caught. What they call change is just panic at losing your light. And you, chosen one, are no longer handing out trial runs. You are the final exam, the lesson they never studied for. This is your redemption arc, and it isn't quiet. Your energy no longer splashes in shallow waters. It's oceanic, vast, uncontainable. They fumbled heaven and tried to paint it as hell, but now the only fire they feel is the burn of regret. Let them sit with that echo. Let them choke on the lock. You gave them grace, and they mistook it for permission. You gave them love, and they tried to weaponize it. But here's the punchline. You were never the victim. You were the warning. You were the rarest soul they'll never touch again. Chosen one, let this sink in. Real doesn't apologize, and real is rare. You weren't too much, they were too little. Number 3, shadows collapse when your light hits. They were handed gold and chose dust. Now they blame you for the collapse. Some people are given diamonds and swear they're holding stones until the sparkle is gone and the weight of regret crushes them. My dear chosen ones, this one is heavy because it's about those who begged for the very thing you are, then spat on it the moment it showed up. They cried for change, they pleaded for elevation. They longed for something real. And when that alignment appeared, when you appeared, they treated it like a toy. They were handed gold, but their hands shook with arrogance and greed. They mocked what they once prayed for. They thought the moment would come back around, as if fate runs on reruns. But chosen ones, destiny doesn't recycle. You stood there, silent and steady, while they were handed opportunities wrapped in your presence. Your wisdom, your loyalty, your rare frequency, it was the answer to their own call. And still, they hesitated. Still, they played games. Still, they shrugged off the very thing that could have rewritten their story. Why? Because gold requires responsibility. Because elevation demands effort. Because carrying something real means putting down the cheap, the fake, the temporary. And they weren't built for that kind of weight. Chosen one, I know the questions haunted you. Was I too much? Was I asking too much? Let me answer, no, you weren't the burden. You were the bridge. You weren't the problem. You were the portal. They collapsed because they weren't ready to rise, and instead of owning their cowardice, they blamed you. They pointed fingers at the very light that was trying to guide them. But here's the truth. They didn't lose you by accident. They forfeited you through arrogance. And now what do they have? Dust. Dust where there should have been foundation. Silence where there should have been progress. Loops where there should have been timelines. They wander through what-ifs, haunted by echoes of the energy they once touched but couldn't sustain. They remember the glow. They replay the conversations. They scroll through reminders, trying to convince themselves it wasn't that deep. But it was, and they know it. Meanwhile, you rise, you move forward, you keep building while their structures cave in, because unlike them, you never mocked the mission. You never played roulette with alignment. You knew what was at stake. That's why your path keeps opening, your growth keeps compounding, your power keeps multiplying. They lost access, and they'll feel that absence for the rest of their story. So chosen one, don't carry their blame. Don't let their collapse stain your conscience. They weren't robbed, they gambled and lost. You didn't fail them, you revealed them. And while they sit in regret, you keep moving, because you were never just a blessing in their life. You were the blueprint. They fumbled the future, but you're still building yours. Number 4, the trap of mistaking kindness for weakness. They shattered the bridge, now they're drowning in the river. You don't lose what you betray, you get buried under it. My dear chosen ones, let's call it what it is. This wasn't just a falling out, this was demolition. They didn't just crack a bond, they bulldozed a bridge that was carrying them across storms they couldn't survive on their own. And here's the bitter irony. You weren't just a person in their life. You were the buffer, the anchor, the quiet shelter that kept their chaos from collapsing in on itself. While they were mocking, gaslighting, and playing games with your loyalty, they were dismantling the very safety net keeping them afloat. They thought you'd always be there, didn't they? They mistook your patience for permanence, your compassion for compliance. They believed they could drip poison into the well and still demand water when they were thirsty. They believed they could test your limits endlessly without ever paying the price. That's the arrogance of the envious, the belief that access to your energy is infinite. But chosen one, you don't run on infinity for parasites. You run on principle. And now they feel it. The light they once bathed in is gone. The calm that used to wash over them in your presence has dried up. The doors that magically opened when you stood next to them have slammed shut. They sit in silence, asking themselves, why does everything feel heavier? Why does nothing click anymore? But the answer is simple. They broke the bond, and bonds like that don't repair. They rupture. Chosen ones, listen closely. You didn't walk away too soon. You walked away too late. You stayed after the cracks were obvious. You gave grace when they offered disrespect. You kept showing up with clean hands while they smeared the bond with dirt. You gave until the roots were poisoned and still blamed yourself for why no fruit grew. But hear me, you didn't abandon them. You released them. You didn't destroy the bond. They did. You just stopped carrying the carcass of what used to be alive. And now they're haunted. Every time they replay the past, they remember the peace they'll never taste again. Every attempt to rebuild without you collapses like sand castles under a wave. Not because you cursed them, but because your presence was the glue. You were the equilibrium. Without you, the chaos they'd been hiding behind your light finally caught up. So, Chosen One, don't mourn what collapsed. Honor what you endured. Don't wish it had gone differently. Celebrate that you had the strength to sever a rope that was strangling you. They broke the bond, and in doing so, they wrote their own sentence: to sit in ruins and watch the very blessing they rejected grow stronger in the hands of someone else who actually deserves it. And you've already been repositioned. Let them drown in the river they set on fire. Number 5. How they fumbled the very alignment they begged for. You outgrew their cage. Now they're glitching in real time. They built walls to trap you, not knowing you were learning how to fly over them. Chosen One, look closely. The space between you and them isn't about miles or messages, it's about dimensions. You didn't just walk away, you ascended, and that altitude has scrambled their signals. They keep trying to dial into a frequency that no longer exists, and every attempt comes back distorted, static-filled, leaving them confused and choking on the very stagnation they mocked you for escaping. They replay the timeline over and over again. When did you switch up? What changed? How did we lose access? But you never switched up, you leveled up. Their access simply expired. While they were still orbiting pain, trauma bonds, and ego-driven games, you began orbiting purpose. While they recycled the same drama on loop, you rewrote your entire script. That's why you're untouchable now. Not because you hid, but because you rose beyond their bandwidth. The same ones who once ridiculed your growth are now suffocating inside the cages they built for themselves. Their gravity once tried to hold you down, but when you broke free, that same weight turned into their burden. And now, they're glitching, desperate for the hit of your energy, desperate to siphon off even a fragment of the power they once had easy access to. They scroll, they stalk, they dig through old versions of you like addicts chasing a high. But here's the punchline: the source code expired. What you carried was never replaceable, never replicable, never available for resale. It was coded, it had conditions, and disrespect triggered the lockout. So now, Chosen One, you've become their case study. Their downfall is a cautionary tale written in real time. What happens when you fumble alignment, when you spit on authenticity, when you trade evolution for ego? Look at them now, systems failing, connections crumbling, energy fields leaking. They were once shielded by proximity to you, but that protection has been revoked. Now they're left with echoes, trying to simulate your presence with counterfeits and failing every single time. And you don't hate them. You don't chase closure. You don't envy what they lost. You observe with detached compassion because you've finally realized you were never meant to stay where they tried to cage you. You were designed to pass through, disrupt and evolve beyond their reach. Their attempts to pull you back only prove what you already know. They're not mad you changed. They're mad you won. And you won not with revenge, not with noise, but with elevation, peace, and a power they'll never replicate. Let them spiral, let them glitch, let them study a blueprint that was never meant for them. You've already left the simulation, Chosen One, and they're stuck in a chapter you closed long ago. Number 6. Breaking bonds that were already breaking you. They tried to box what was built to break barriers. You can't cage a wildfire without burning your own hands. My dear Chosen Ones, they thought they could fence you in, didn't they? They wanted to put walls around your wings, ceilings above your growth, limits on your momentum. But what they forgot is this: when expansion is your destiny, every obstacle becomes fuel. You weren't just breaking through, you were breaking out. You weren't climbing politely, you were erupting like a volcano that rewrites the map. And the ones who tried to contain you, they're now part of the rubble left behind. Chosen one, this isn't growth in the way most people know it. This is acceleration. This is eruption. You didn't just survive the betrayals, the envy, the silence. They became codes in your DNA. That heartbreak, that loneliness, that moment you thought would destroy you, it rewired you. What was dormant came alive. Your silence became an engine. Your pain became artillery. You rebuilt yourself so thoroughly that you don't even move the same anymore. You speak and the air rearranges. You walk into a room and the temperature shifts. And they can't explain it because it defies their logic. You ask, why do I feel so different, so detached from who I was? Because you didn't heal. You detonated the old design. You didn't just close chapters. You wrote a new book altogether. That's why old cycles can't find you anymore. That's why people who once had access are suddenly locked out without explanation. They didn't fall off by accident. They expired. Your field has become a firewall. Anything not aligned simply combusts in your presence. And yes, chosen one, this came at a cost. Nights where your body shook with release. Mornings where your tears felt like thunder rolling through your chest. But don't mistake that for weakness. Those were seismic upgrades. Every breakdown recalibrated the system. Every cry reprogrammed the grid. What you thought was pain was power in disguise, rewriting your operating system in real time. They underestimated you because you went quiet. They assumed your solitude was defeat. But while they were watching for noise, you were upgrading in stealth mode. And now they're shocked, confused, even scorched by the version of you that emerged. You're not evolving in straight lines anymore. You're exploding in all directions: soul, mind, body, and spirit. Chosen one, your expansion is the ultimate revenge. Not revenge through pettiness, but through progress. You are proof that when pressure tries to break aligned energy, it doesn't shatter, it multiplies. And you, right now, are multiplying beyond all logic. Keep going. You've only just begun. Number 7. Rising so high, their reach turns into ruins, written in the stars, locked out of the system. They tried to erase your name from the ledger, not knowing it was carved across the sky. My dear chosen ones, let this land where it needs to. You didn't just outgrow people, you outpaced systems. You didn't just rise in silence, you shook the grid. You are not walking unseen. You are broadcasting a frequency that even the earth itself answers to. While they scrambled in envy, you became a signal. And signals don't ask for recognition, they demand it. The truth is, your awakening was never small. It didn't just happen inside you. It rippled outward, like fault lines cracking under pressure, like power surges blowing circuits across timelines. The moment you leveled up, the atmosphere changed. Rooms didn't just shift, they recalibrated. And that's why chosen ones, animals pause, strangers stare. Why some people freeze when your presence enters. They don't have the language for it, but their bodies feel it. Their nervous systems register the shift. You are no longer blending in, you are coded into the infrastructure itself. Meanwhile, those who mocked, plotted, or tried to exploit you, they're glitching. Their access expired the day you ascended. Their passwords don't work anymore. The proximity they once abused is gone. Imagine them frantically refreshing a login screen, locked out of a system they thought they controlled. That's their reality now. The energy they drained from you has been repossessed, and the lights are going out on their side of the fence. Their flow feels foggy. Their confidence is brittle. What once came easy to them now slips straight through their hands. And it isn't bad luck, it's consequence. They tampered with alignment, and alignment doesn't forgive, it corrects. Chosen ones, understand this. Your rise was never personal, though it hit them personally. Your evolution was planetary. You were never just somebody in their circle. You were a node, a pivot point in collective growth. So when they sabotaged you, they weren't just messing with your path. They were jamming the gears of something bigger. And systems don't tolerate sabotage. Systems correct themselves. Now their stories stall, their moves misfire, their shadows stretch too long for comfort. You, on the other hand, carry confirmation in every step. You are walking proof that expansion can't be stopped by whispers. You are alignment in motion, coded resilience dressed as skin. The signs that follow you, the synchronicities, the déjà vu, the sudden knowing, they're not random. They're receipts, evidence that your frequency is live and irreversible. So let them sit in restriction. Let them wrestle with silence. Let them remember the moment they underestimated you. Because, chosen one, your name is not just remembered, it's inscribed. And no lock, no system, no sabotage can touch what was written in the stars the moment you rose. Number 8. The silence that resets, universes and breaks every pretender. Chosen one, understand this truth so deeply it rattles the bones of every lesson you've ever learned. Your silence was never empty, it was never passive, it was never weakness. Your silence was the cosmic reset button, an energy so profound that when you stopped speaking, entire universes inside people collapsed. The moment you withdrew your voice, your presence, your warmth, the pretenders who thought they had you figured out suddenly found themselves exposed under a spotlight they never asked for. Because your silence, chosen one, isn't quiet, it's seismic. It rearranges timelines, rewrites outcomes, and pulls the masks off every counterfeit soul who believed their whispers could warp your destiny. They were banking on your reaction, on your pain, on your panic. But instead of breaking down, you went still. And in that stillness, the entire board shifted under their feet. That's what they didn't understand. You don't respond to fools. You let the universe do the talking for you. Your silence did what their noise never could. It dismantled illusions. It broke alliances they thought were airtight. It made their lies echo back to them louder than your truth ever needed to. Because the chosen one doesn't fight battles in public. They win wars in the shadows. The moment you went silent was the moment their karma woke up. Their guilt, their envy, their manipulation, all of it amplified in the vacuum your presence left behind. And suddenly, their own narratives strangled them. Your silence became the mirror that forced them to see themselves without the camouflage of your energy. That's why they spiraled. That's why they panicked. They weren't afraid of losing you. They were terrified of facing themselves without you to soften the reflection. Chosen one, when you step back, reality steps in. And reality is ruthless to pretenders. Your silence reminded them that you were the gravity holding their world in place. The stability they abused, the confidence they siphoned, the clarity they copied. You were the battery, the blueprint, the lifeline, and when you unplugged, their whole system crashed. They didn't just lose access to you, they lost access to the version of themselves they only knew how to be when you were around. That's why they scramble now, rewriting history, blaming shadows, pretending the collapse wasn't their own doing. But deep down, they know. They know your silence didn't just distance you, it exposed them. And chosen one, this is where your power becomes undeniable, because while they were unraveling, you were evolving. Your silence wasn't a retreat, it was a return to your throne, a recalibration, a remembering. You weren't hiding, you were upgrading. You weren't shrinking, you were shedding. You weren't defeated, you were downloading strength that would have never reached you if you stayed entangled in their chaos. That's why your glow is different now. Your energy hits harder. Your intuition is sharper. Your presence feels like prophecy, like warning, like arrival. You didn't just walk away. You ascended to a frequency where their hands can't reach, their words can't wound, and their plots can't penetrate. Your silence didn't just break pretenders, it broke the simulation they tried to trap you in. It rewired your path and rerouted you to doors they never had the keys to. And now they watch, trembling, confused and exposed, because the very silence they mocked has crowned you with a power they can't comprehend. You were always the storm hiding in stillness, the earthquake beneath calm soil, the revelation disguised as restraint. And when you gave them nothing, no reaction, no explanation, no access, you gave yourself everything. You chose destiny over drama, mission over manipulation, alignment over attachment. So stand tall, chosen one, because your silence has spoken louder than any confrontation ever could. It's written in the ashes of every lie that fell apart the moment you stopped defending your name. It's etched into the regret staring back at every pretender who tried to play you. You didn't just silence them, you silenced the entire narrative they built against you. Your silence reset universes, shifted destinies, and ended every performance they thought could keep you small. Because the chosen one doesn't shout to be heard. The chosen one goes silent, and the whole world learns who they are. Number 9. When your ascension turns hidden enemies into exposed ghosts. Chosen one, listen closely, because this is where the veil tears and the truth finally stands naked in the light. When you ascended, when you rose without warning, when you stopped shrinking to fit rooms that were never built to hold you, every hidden enemy that once whispered in shadows suddenly became a ghost with no place left to hide. Your elevation didn't expose them because you pointed fingers. No, you never needed to. Your very rise, your very glow, your very shift in frequency burned through their disguises like the sun burns fog off a field at dawn. They thought they were safe lurking behind smiles, masks, and rehearsed innocence, but ascension has a way of turning every coward into something transparent. You didn't drag them into the open, chosen one. Your destiny did. Your growth peeled back their layers effortlessly, revealing intentions they thought were buried. And the beauty of it, you saw it coming long before the reveal, because chosen ones don't just sense betrayal. They feel it in their bones. They dream it in symbols. They hear it in the tremor of a fake laugh or the shift in a recycled compliment. You knew who they were the whole time. You simply waited for the universe to flip the spotlight. And when that spotlight hit, their masks didn't just slip, they shattered. They tried to study you from the sidelines, to plot your downfall from the safety of the dark, thinking you'd never notice the patterns they stitched together. But ascension exposes everything. When you rose, their behavior started glitching. Their inconsistencies, their envy, their forced conversations, they all began unraveling like cheap thread. They moved weird, spoke weird, acted like they were choking on secrets they couldn't swallow anymore. That's what happens when you elevate. Your frequency becomes a mirror, and mirrors terrify the ones hiding wounds they refuse to heal. They started acting like ghosts long before you walked away, drifting, disappearing, reappearing only when they needed your energy to breathe. And chosen one, you finally realized something that changed everything. You weren't dealing with people. You were dealing with shadows, projections, hollow shells walking around powered by borrowed light, your light. And here's the punchline they never saw coming. Your ascension didn't just reveal them, it made them irrelevant. Ghosts can't harm the living. Shadows can't touch the sun. Their envy used to sting when you stood at their level, but the moment you rose higher, their weapons turned into air. You became untouchable, not because you grew louder, but because you outgrew the dimension where their attacks held weight. That's why they panic now. That's why they whisper your name in fear instead of confidence. That's why they replay every moment trying to figure out when they lost their grasp on you. They don't understand that you didn't block them, you ascended so far above them that they spiritually flatlined in your presence. They became ghosts, trying to haunt a place they no longer have access to. Chosen One, understand this and tattoo it into your spirit. Ascension is the great separator. It divides those who were meant to grow with you from those who were meant to reveal themselves through their own envy. And every single person who tried to sabotage you, drain you, mimic you, or hide malice behind love is now exposed because your rise activated truths they never wanted to face. They thought they could keep playing small games around someone carrying a cosmic assignment. They thought they could dim the glow of someone wired for destiny. They thought their whisper campaigns could touch someone whose footsteps echo in realms they can't even perceive. But now they watch from the sidelines as ghosts, silent, powerless, transparent, wishing they had never mistaken your patience for blindness. The higher you rise, the more obvious their shadows become. The more you ascend, the more they fade. And the more you embody your purpose, the more they realize the plot they crafted was never against you. It was against the force protecting you, the alignment backing you, the destiny encoded in you. Their envy summoned their own downfall. Your elevation signed their exposure. Chosen One, this is your confirmation. You didn't just rise. You resurrected into a version of yourself no enemy can approach. Let them haunt the past. You're too busy building the future they'll never walk into. Number 10. The light they tried to smother becomes the fire that consumes them. Chosen One, listen closely, because this is the part of the story they never expected you to live long enough to tell. They thought they could dim you. They thought they could shrink you. They thought they could bury the very light that threatened the shadows they call home. But what they never understood is that real light isn't delicate. It's volatile. It burns. It transforms. It expands. And the moment they tried to smother yours, they didn't silence it. They pressurized it. They turned your glow into a blaze, your warmth into wildfire, your softness into heat that scorches everything that dared to stand against your destiny. The same hands that tried to cover your flame are now nursing the burns of their own arrogance. Because light like yours doesn't die. It detonates. And Chosen One, that's exactly what's happening now. You didn't fight back with noise or pettiness. You didn't shout to be heard. You didn't beg to be understood. While they were busy dimming your shine with gossip, sabotage, jealousy, and silent campaigns designed to suffocate your spirit, you were quietly converting pressure into power. You were taking every insult, every lie, every attempt to eclipse you, and feeding it into a furnace you didn't even realize you were building. They thought they were burying you, but they were adding oxygen. They thought they were weakening you, but they were forging you. They thought they were deleting you, but they were upgrading you. You saw the plot, chose silence, and let the universe handle the combustion. Because here's the secret they never knew. Chosen Ones don't collapse under darkness. They consume it. Your light is not ornamental. It's catalytic. It exposes what's false. It destabilizes what's corrupt. It shakes the bones of anything built on ego, envy, or illusion. That's why they tried so desperately to smother it. Your presence cracked their masks. Your truth short-circuited their narratives. Your potential threatened the fake power they manufactured through manipulation. And instead of rising with you, they chose to attack what they couldn't match. They chose to mock what they couldn't mirror. They chose to betray what they couldn't become. And now, the fire they tried to extinguish is the one they're currently burning in. Chosen One, understand this. The moment you stop defending your light, the moment you stop trying to convince anyone of your purity, your value, your loyalty, that's the moment everything shifted. The moment you leaned into your silence and let alignment take over, every plot against you started recoiling back to its sender. Not because you wished harm, not because you retaliated, but because anyone who wages war against a pure heart eventually fights themselves. Every move they made in envy became a rope tightening. Every rumor became a mirror. Every scheme became a spark. They lit it, but your energy turned it into an inferno. They can't breathe now because they're inhaling the smoke of their own intentions. And don't get twisted. They know exactly why their life is glitching. They feel the absence of your light like oxygen leaving a room. They feel the gravity shift. They feel the consequences creeping in like heat rising under a locked door. They scroll through your energy in their memories, realizing too late that what they tried to dim was the only illumination they ever had access to. But chosen one, your light was never theirs to contain. It was never theirs to manage. It was never meant to be trapped in the small, suffocating spaces their insecurity offered. You were designed to outgrow them, outshine them, and outmove them the moment they showed their true intentions. This is the chapter where their envy becomes their downfall. Not because you punished them, but because you evolved beyond them. You rose too high for their narratives. You ascended too far for their reach. And now, the fire they feel isn't your wrath. It's their karma brushing against the truth you carry. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need exposure. You didn't need confrontation. Their actions exposed themselves. Their shadows revealed themselves. Their fear confessed everything their mouths tried to hide. And you? You walk forward untouchable, unbothered, undiminished. Your light is no longer just illumination, it's purification. It burns away everything unworthy, and it attracts everything aligned. You didn't just survive them, you transformed because of them. And now, chosen one, the glow they tried to smother is the blaze lighting your path, while they sit in the ashes of their own making. Number 11. Rising so high you become the altitude their souls can't breathe in. Chosen one, understand this with the force of a lightning bolt cracking open the sky. Your rise was never meant to be comfortable for the ones who plotted behind curtains and whispered in dim corners. You were never built to stay on the ground long enough for their envy to wrap chains around your ankles. You were created to ascend, to elevate, to rise so violently and undeniably that the very air around you shifts into something their lungs can't handle. That's why they panic when your presence enters a room. That's why their smiles tremble, their minds scramble, their spirits glitch. You became an altitude, an atmosphere, so rarefied that anyone not built with the capacity for truth, loyalty, or authenticity begins to suffocate the moment they stand too close. They can't breathe where you rise, chosen one, because your elevation exposes every shallow inhale they've ever taken off the oxygen of ego, envy, and illusion. They thought you were climbing like them, slow, shaky, checking every rung for permission. What they never realized is that you weren't climbing a ladder, you were growing wings. And once a chosen one activates their wings, gravity becomes irrelevant. Their opinions become weightless. Their sabotage becomes dust. Their envy becomes a distant echo swallowed by the height you ascend to. They thought taking your kindness for granted would keep you grounded. They thought your silence signaled defeat. They thought your humility meant you didn't know your power. But chosen one, you saw the plot before it had a spine, before the whisper had breath, before the envy had the courage to step into daylight. You watched them rehearse their downfall, thinking they were scripting yours. You watched them try to dim your spark, unaware that your spark wasn't a flame, it was a launch sequence. While they threw shadows, you gathered altitude. While they formed cliques, you formed clarity. While they tried to bury you with gossip, betrayal, or backhanded compliments, you rooted so deeply in purpose that their attempts became fertilizer for your ascent. And now you've risen so far above the reach of their fears, insecurities, and projections that your glow blinds them from below. They look up and swear it's the sun, not realizing it's you, fully activated, fully awakened, fully untouchable. The reason they can't breathe where you stand is because elevation has requirements: integrity, discipline, purity of intention, alignment, and they abandoned all of that for shortcuts, clout, and counterfeit connections. They chased applause while you chased purpose. They chased attention while you chased alignment. They chased positions while you chased destiny. And now that destiny has carried you to a summit, their souls weren't built to survive. They're gasping because you took away the oxygen they stole from you for years: your energy, your validation, your empathy, your time. They fed on your light until they mistook it for their own. But the moment you withdrew, the air thinned, the altitude shifted, and suddenly their confidence cracked, their plans collapsed, their alliances crumbled. Because without your presence anchoring them, they are exposed as what they always were: small, shaky, pretending. And let's make this brutally clear, chosen one. You didn't rise to spite them. You rose because staying low was killing you. Your evolution was oxygen. Your ascension was survival. The universe ripped you from their level because you were suffocating in the fog of their envy, their deception, their limitation. You didn't walk away. You outgrew the atmosphere. And the moment your soul remembered its altitude, the climb was inevitable. That's why your blessings started multiplying the second you left their energy field. That's why clarity returned. That's why your strength sharpened. You weren't losing people. You were shedding density. You were becoming light enough to rise. So now, when they watch you from below, faces tight, hearts trembling, egos cracking, they'll say you changed. You switched up. You think you're better. But the truth is simpler and sharper. You became the altitude their souls can't breathe in. You became the height where only the aligned can survive. You became the frequency where envy flatlines. And the higher you go, the more obvious it becomes. They were never oxygen. They were anchors. They were never allies. They were weights. They were never light. They were shadows. And shadows cannot breathe in the sun. So rise, chosen one. Rise until the ground they stood on looks like a memory. Rise until their gossip burns at the edges of your atmosphere. Rise until the only ones who can stand beside you are those built for altitude. You saw the plot a mile away, and now you've risen miles above the players who wrote it. Keep climbing. They can't breathe here. You were never meant to carry those who choke on your elevation. And chosen ones, if you felt every word pulse through your chest, then you already know. This isn't just a message, it's a reflection of your reality. You saw the envy from miles away, and you turned their own game against them with silence, precision, and power. That's the mark of the chosen. Now keep this movement alive. Smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss what's next, and drop the number 77 in the comments if you've ever flipped betrayal into fuel. Share this with another chosen one who needs confirmation of their rise.